All right. Well, we're back at the with the Budget Cut podcast. E-Team sponsor. This is Sean Connors here. I'm here with one of our favorite people in our profession and in our industry, Mr. John Beam, the head football coach and athletic director at Laney College out in Oakland, California. We're sitting amongst royalty right now. We're sitting next to the 3C2A state and national championship football coach. How's that sound?
That sounds awesome. I think it's something that you thrive for. The kids work their tails off to get it, and Now we have it and we can claim it,
First one in the history of the school, Coach?
First real one. We had one in 1966 or 64 when they beat O.J. Simpson in the Prune Bowl, but it was mystical because there was no real rankings. Now we have real playoffs.
Sure.
And it was it was San Francisco City versus Laney, so having two Northern California. But now we played truly a Southern California.
Was that an original Battle of the Bay? San Francisco versus Oakland? That's
absolutely
awesome. That's cool.
Absolutely. And I think it's Laney was, I think we're still playing at Frank Ewell Field, which is where the Raiders played at that time.
Yeah.
So it's a little different.
That's awesome. That's so cool, Coach. Well, we're certainly proud of you. Obviously, being a client of ours, it's awesome for us to be able to see, hey, whether it's $1 or $10,000, no matter how much money we can help somebody raise, it's great to see programs like that thriving. So
we haven't hit that 10,000 mark yet. We're working on it. in one campaign.
One campaign. We'll get there. We're getting close. We're getting close. We got 9,000 last year. That's great for a junior college. That's incredible. Well, Coach, let's talk some football to start. So let's talk about the championship game.
Absolutely.
A heck of a game. What was the final score again?
40-35.
40-35. Heck of a game, start to finish. Insane plays, players.
Yeah.
There's rumor has it you jumped on one of your coach's backs, running around on the field like you were a 12-year-old on the playground. You
never as a football coach or any coach, right? You practice all the scenarios. Third and long, third and short, fourth and one. Your favorite 2-point play.
Sure.
We didn't practice what we're going to do when we win, right? So everybody just start running. I was just running like everybody else. And Derek Gardner, my defensive back coach, my corner coach, I've known him since he's 14 years old. Played for me in high school. Played at Cal. Played for the Falcons. So I just saw him. I just jumped on him, and everybody couldn't believe I had that much hop still. Now I was hurting on Sunday, but I got the hops up. But so I jumped up, and the game was phenomenal. We started out with a 23-0 lead. We preach all phases. So we blocked a punt, and then scored a touchdown. Then we kicked off and pinned them inside the 5 and got a safety. So the momentum was going. But Ventura, Moshegan's a good coach. I think he's one of your clients also.
He is,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
So they just started grinding it back, and I think that for me, what was great is the way that we won was because we play great defense and we run the ball. So in the second half, I don't think we stopped them offensively, but they were scoring like in 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes and 50 seconds. When we get the ball, we had it 3 times, but they were 14, 16, 14 play drives, and we just ate clock up. And we gave it to our tailback, sophomore, who really hasn't been playing. He's been out. He's been hurt with a turf toe and an ankle. Hadn't practiced for 2 weeks because we rested him, and he goes 38 carries for like 225 yards. So not bad.
That's awesome. That is
not
great.
Bad.
So 40-35. They had the ball last, or did you guys end up getting it back?
No, we got it, and we went for it at 4th down, and we didn't make it, but we burned all their timeouts. They had like 58 seconds left to go, like 60-something yards. Bad play call in the last one. Could have done a better play call.
How excruciating were the last 58 seconds?
It was tough. They completed some balls, and it's like the second to last play of the game. We picked it. We thought we had it picked. The guy jumped. Our all conference corner went up off. They have a 6'5" receiver. Our 5'9" corner went up on it, got the ball, but didn't hold on. Would have been a clean pick. Said one more play. We covered everybody. Quarterback tried to run like he's going to run 20-something yards or whatever it was. So we stopped him. And then that's when you kind of look like, oh, time's out. What do you do now? Just start running.
Running around.
So we start running around.
That's awesome. That's great, Coach. Well, congratulations. I know you're no stranger to winning and success because you've had obviously a great career coaching. One of the things we've been doing on this podcast is it's great for coaches just to hear how do coaches do it wherever they're at. Across the country, doesn't matter what level they coach at, high school, junior college, 4-year. Doesn't matter. Guys just like to hear people's story. So I have fun doing this too because I know you guys, obviously being clients and having relationships with you guys. But kind of tell your story. Why'd you get into coaching? Obviously, you grew up in San Diego. So talk about how you got into coaching and how you ended up at Laney College.
It's kind of interesting. Growing up in San Diego, played football, But when I got out of high school, I graduated with honors, right? But no one knew I'd graduate with honors, right? They thought it was a joke. I had this golden cord because I had so much fun in high school. My goal was to be a tuna fisherman. In San Diego at the time, you could go tuna fishing, for like 3 to 6 months and come back with 20, 30 G in 1977. That's a lot of money. And that's when you first started. So if you built yourself up, you become a lot of money.
Sure.
Luckily, I didn't do that because the tuna industry in the U.S. is completely gone now. But I decided to play JC football and had a phenomenal offensive line coach, Charlie Popa, that said, "Hey, let's go ahead and you're a good student. Let's move forward, play football." I learned a lot of football. Mike Martz, the Rams coach, was my OC, and one of the things got done playing during my sophomore year. I was all conference as a freshman. Now I want you to think about it. All conference is a 205-pound tackle, left tackle. Not a lot.
205-pound tackle.
Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of Division I offers at 205 pounds, right?
No, certainly
Got
not.
a lot of letters, but I don't
Sure.
think they realize how much I really weighed. So I end out in the 5th game. I blow out my ACL medial collateral ligament.
Wow.
Both my cartilages. So I was done, And so in June, I get a call from Eastern New Mexico. "Hey, we got a scholarship offer for you." Love it. Problem is, I got surgery again. I have a second surgery less than 6 months. So Coach Popa says, "Hey, you got to rehab. What are you going to do?" I said, "I don't know, Coach. I already got my A degree, high school qualified. What am I going to do?" He said, "Well, why don't you go coach? There's a high school that needs an offensive line coach." It's all right. Mike Williams was the head coach there, just got the job.
What school was that at?
Serra High School in San Diego.
Serra in San Diego. Got it.
Yeah. Public school.
Yeah.
But phenomenal coach, knew so much about football. So he taught me for 2 years. I was offensive line coach. We went to the playoffs, first time ever in the school history. Played against Marcus Allen's brothers and all those guys, and it was just phenomenal. Got the bug, and I loved it. So I wanted to coach. Met my wife. She wasn't my wife at the time. She was from San Jose, so she's going to UC San Diego. She moves to Berkeley, go to UC Berkeley. Like, all right, I'll move up north.
I'll move up north.
Why not? Check it all out. So I ended up going to Cal State Hayward, who's now East Bay. They don't even exist anymore.
Yeah, Cal State East Bay.
Right. And so who's the OC then? Mike Bellotti.
No kidding.
So I got to meet him. I didn't play, but, and then I started substitute teaching in Oakland, and the guy says, I asked the guy, "Well, where's the best program?" He goes, "Go to Skyline." So I go to Skyline, meet the head coach. He's looking for a linebacker coach. Yeah, I can coach linebackers. Start talking to him. Next thing you know, not only am I coaching linebackers, but I'm the defensive coordinator. All right, I'll do that.
Wow. So you go from playing offensive tackle and being an O-line coach to now having to learn the other side of the ball.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, and I think anytime that if you know what hurts you as an offensive line coach, then you know what to run on defense. So that was pretty easy. Phenomenal athletes at Skyline. So I spent 5 years as D coordinator there. And in our my 3rd year at Skyline, we're at 1984. We have Brian Johnson, plays for the Giants, goes to Stanford's quarterback coach. Dwayne Gardner, started for 3 Rose Bowl at USC. We played De La Salle, your school.
Yeah,
kind of school.
Kind of my school, yeah.
Right, Dowie School.
Dowie School, there you go.
So we play them, and we beat them. And so no one beats them, right? We beat them. And so that was a great, great feeling. And then, 1987, I become the head coach. And that's fired up, And, of course, as a head coach, I go 5-4-1.
First year?
Yeah, go second place. Like, oh, God, do we even know what we're going on?
Sure.
But we kind of revamped it. We made things simple on defense, simple on offense, going to run the ball. So one of the things at Skyline, I was there for 22 years, 17 as the head coach. During that time, every starting tailback that we had went Division I. So we knew we could run the ball. So we predicate our offense and run the ball, control the clock, play action, simple things like that, and play great defense. And we again, went back to San Diego after that 5-4-1 year, spent some time with Charlie Popa. He said, "Run this defense. Go see Clyde Gilbert, who was at San Jose State.
Sure.
Run the bear, basically. We ran the bear, double eagle bear, man-to-man, press man-to-man." Everybody used to ask me, "Why do you play press man-to-man?" I said, "Well, every kid in Oakland knows how to play press man-to-man." They go, "They do?" I go, "Yeah, they're all basketball players."
Yeah. It's the cat defense, right?
Exactly.
I got that cat. You got that cat. Let's go.
And then put pressure on people. So it was easy.
Yep.
And, during that time. So, again, we went through the time. We won. During the 90s, I didn't lose a game in the 90s, undefeated in the 90s.
You had a heck of a run there.
In league play, had some great players. I put, close to 100 kids, probably over 100 kids in Division I, had 20 go to the NFL. So great coaching? Probably not, but pretty good idea of how to judge some talent and keep them on the field, right?
Sure.
And so, we won a lot of games, worked out. And then, you kind of reach a pinnacle. What else do you do? I was state coach of the year. Like I said, won all these games. So the next thing was what happens next? Well, the junior college, right here in Oakland. Stan Peters was a 40-year coach there,
Sure.
real sharp guy.
A legend.
Knows his stuff. Jay Uchumi. So they hire me full time, and then we just start rolling. It's the same kids at Skyline at Laney, just more. So instead of 35 or 38 varsity players, now we have 100 JC kids. No different. Difference are probably, though, funding, right, for 100
Sure.
people.
Yeah.
So the one thing is that in high school, I do a lot of fundraising. In the community college, I do one fundraiser a year with e-teens, right?
Yeah.
Why? It's easy. But, I don't want to do fundraising. That's not what they pay me for. They pay me to teach young men to be men, help them get to college. So our deal is we got a 90% transfer rate.
That's incredible. For those people out there that don't understand the junior college dynamic, the community college dynamic, and to have a transfer rate of 90+%, I mean, Coach, that's incredible.
It is, and we take a lot of pride in that, right? Of course, early on we were taking a lot of pride in that because we're 7-3, 8-2, 6-4, right? Now it's easier to take pride in it when you're a state champion or the mystical national champion, depending on who you talk to.
Sure.
And I mean, it's going to be up. For me, I know my assistants and all the Northern California coaches want to make sure that we know that we're the national champs. It's because there's more schools in California that play community college football
than anywhere
else in the country combined.
Yeah.
And they're junior college, we're community college. So there's a little bit of difference in there. But you know what? Anybody that does what we do, working with the community that we do, and either it's junior college or if it's community college, you're working with a lot of folks that need us, right?
Sure.
And what I say that what we do at Laney is we create hope and opportunity, right? We give folks an opportunity to achieve something. And a lot of times they're hoping for that too, right? And so you hope that you can help them achieve their dream. Now, it takes a lot of hard work. And like I tell them, when we say we have 90% transfer, I'm proud of it. They're not going to the SEC or USC or Oregon, right?
Sure.
They're going to Minot State. They're going to Kansas Wesleyan. They're going all over the places. Some are going, we have kids go to Oregon, UCLA, Cal. They are. And we've had like C.J. Anderson,
Sure.
Who's, was a Pro Bowler for the Broncos, winning Super Bowl touchdown guy. But you also have guys that just go on and keep playing and now have a degree. The bulk of our team come from their first time. If we have 90% that transfer, probably 90% or 80% of our football players are first-generation college students. So now they get, a degree. We have a young man this year. He's going to get a full Division II scholarship. When he came to us, he didn't even speak English.
No kidding.
He came from Tonga, never played. Been there 4 years now to learn it, but he's got an A degree. He's going to transfer. Didn't graduate high school because in Tonga they didn't really have an accredited high school. But he's achieved that. Now he's got great English skills, right? All that stuff. So to me, that's as much winning a championship as we did on the field up in Sacramento.
Sure.
And so we take pride in that, right?
That's
something
awesome.
that we take pride in. So you get kids that have come back from incarceration. One of the biggest stories I have is Devon Best. He played for me at Skyline, ran into some trouble, did 13 months in youth camp, got out, got him at Hawaii. We went on to break all these records at Hawaii, and then, goes to the NFL as a free agent, spends 6 or 8 years, maybe the top slot receiver. Unbelievable story. But it's hope and opportunity, right? That's
Sure.
what we provide.
That's awesome.
And you got to believe in something, right? And so I've chosen this field. I guess a long story is
it's
to
great.
choose to believe in the young people that we have today and to make it happen. And so, I take pride in it, but I take the pride in is just letting them know that they can do it, right? I don't do it for them, but, a lot of kids run into hurdles. And when you run into a hurdle, if you've been bad in school or school hasn't been your friend, you immediately see a hurdle and you walk away.
Yeah.
Well, we're there to help them. You know what? We can get over this hurdle together. And that's what it's all about, working together, because they didn't have a lot of people that have their back. And last night we talked about loyalty, and that is so huge for me. If you commit to me, and I tell them, you commit to me, I commit to you for a lifetime. So, I got guys now that have, like I've said, I've, taught them back in the 80s. I still talk to them to this day, good or bad or indifference, right? Because we're not going to give up on each other. So it's a good deal.
That's awesome, Coach. It's we've been really privileged, I think, having spent time with coaches across the country, and we ask them all the time, why? Why do you coach? Why do you do what you do? And it's great to get insight from everyone. Hear that story. Hey, this is why I do it, and these are the stories that we get to tell because of it, and the impact, right?
Yeah.
The opportunity that you've created for guys. Do you have you've coached for a long time?
39 years.
Yeah, and you've coached. Let's go right into. Let's talk about where you've coached. You've coached in Oakland.
Yes.
You've coached in Oakland, California, where for a lot of people out there, maybe they don't understand. But let people know what type of situations are these kids that are at Skyline, that are at Laney College. Where they come from, and when you talk about how big really opportunity is for them.
Well, Oakland at one time was like murder capital of the world, right? We had a really high murder rate, a lot of gang violence, and things like that. But, when you look at it, what's the difference between Laney football team or Skyline football team and a gang? They're the same, right? It's wanting to belong, having some rules. Gangs have rules, right?
Sure, yeah.
So people always talk about peer pressure as a negative. Peer pressure can be a positive if you use it correctly, right? And so that's the type of things we looked at, getting him off. I had one of my first kids I coached was a young man, and he was heavy into dealing drugs, all that. Well, he gave that up to play football, and he got a Division I scholarship. Unfortunately, he ended up being shot and killed inadvertently, if that's possible. But the point was he gave up one thing for something else. So when you work in the inner cities like in Oakland or wherever, you got to give them something, right? And to belong, team building, things like that, where sometimes it's not safe to go home, right? Being home is not good. So you have to create a place or environment where they can go home. And that home is your field, your locker room, your meeting rooms, where they can feel wanted and feel nurtured. And that's what we give. I was fortunate, I had mom and dad growing up. My dad, was always there for him, but actually was there for my friends. I used to laugh that he'd pick up some of my friends that didn't have fathers in their lives, didn't have other things in life, and pick them up, bring them to practice, like from Little League and Pop Warner in high school. Like, Dad, how come you're not picking up? Boy, you already know how to get to school. You know how to get to practice. They need a real ride.
Yeah.
You're only going a little ways. They're going a long way. Really? Okay. But I learned that from my father, giving back, to folks that need it. And I think that's important, and I think too, my wife believes in that too. My daughters, my youngest daughter is the commissioner of the Oakland Athletic League now, something that I'm real proud of, right? She followed in my footsteps of being involved with athletics, but now she's taken it even to a higher level, being in charge of all of the sports and, having some real ideas about how things should be done. So I'm fired up about that as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Coach. So in terms of we talk about with a lot of our coaches just the whole leadership and mentality. We talked about it last night at dinner, right? We talked about mentality. But in terms of leadership, mentorship, everyone has somebody that they can look back to and say, wow, this person it had a profound or lasting impact in my life and maybe help give a sense of direction, mentorship. Looking back on it, who's your biggest mentor?
It's tough. It probably starts with my mom and dad, right? My dad being always there, didn't even know. Had a JV coach, Phil Covington at Kearney, that was just phenomenal. That, when I ran into trouble, growing up with two parents and then going to an inner city high school myself, you want to hang out with these group of kids that are doing some bad things because you feel like you're a square being good.
Sure.
And then someone points out to you like, okay, you can be cool without doing all this extra stuff. He pointed it out to me like, okay, like I graduated with honors. Well, no one knew I did because I was always a fool, right? But he's like, dude, come on. And so I think that, Charlie Popa pointing out, got me into coaching. Mike Williams, who gave me the first job, all real important, I remember one time Mike Martz came over. He was coaching Arizona State, had dinner at my house and was recruiting. And we were talking about what I should do for career path. And, should I be a Division I coach or should I be a high school coach? And, he said, with what you do and what the passion that you bring to the community, you're going to get paid way more to be a high school coach than you ever will with college. I go, Coach, how does that make sense? I'm making barely $20,000. You're making like $80,000 to $100,000. He goes, it's not about dollars. It's what you get paid intrinsically from what you do. And then when I walk the streets of Oakland and everybody knows who I am, or my daughter walks through Oakland and knows who her father is and the legacy that I've created in this city, it's like, okay, I get what he means now. Now, when you're 24 years old and you got 2 kids and you're trying to pay bills. Like, Coach, I really want to make the $80,000 or $60,000, right? Not 20,000 teaching. But he kind of made that pretty clear. And at the time, let's face it, Division I coaches, it's a business, right?
Sure.
It's all about them. They're making money and they're winning, because if they don't win, they're not feeding their family.
Absolutely.
At Laney or at Skyline, win, lose, or draw on the field is not necessarily winning. You got to win in other ways, right?
Sure.
Now, fortunately, I've been able to win, so it's easy to say that. But you're still looking for wins in a lot different ways, and so it may not reflect on a scoreboard, but it reflects at graduation or when you see someone get a job or see someone be, seeing a young man be a successful father, and he never had a father. That's worth its weight in gold.
Sure, absolutely. Well, it's interesting. Obviously, junior college athletics is important to me, having obviously been a two-year student athlete, but also having coached as well. Knowing, look, I think we all do it for the right reasons, right? We want to make sure this is not the last class they take or the last down of football that they
Correct.
play, right? Is for them to move on.
Absolutely.
What looking back and kind of keeping that in mind, you got any some stories that maybe tug on the heartstrings, or ones that really just make you fill you with a sense of pride, knowing that you helped maybe a specific student athlete or two move on? Some great stories.
There's a lot of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just so many. I mean, it was funny. I'm going to turn 60 next week.
Which you look great for 59, almost 60.
Hey, I'm trying. My goal is to hit 260 on the bench at my 60th birthday. I'm
there
at
you
250,
go.
so
all
we're
right,
working.
there you go. I like it.
Unlike Jacoby, I'm clean.
Yeah.
I can pass the urine test.
We'll make sure that
Steve hears that one.
Yeah, we'll make sure he gets that one.
And so my wife, we're putting together a list, and it's like, okay, as you put the list growing, and then if I invite someone, then they go, oh, can I bring this person, this one, because it's so big. And we look at, I was talking, Houston Lillard is one I'm just thinking about right now. He played for me, was a quarterback my first year as the offensive coordinator at Laney, and led us to a championship. And everybody knows his brother Damian Lillard.
Sure.
The
all-world point guard, right?
For Trailblazer.
Yeah.
But I had to tell Damian the other day, like, who the best athlete in the family really is. It's Houston, right? But the point was that Houston sent me a text right before the state championship game and just told me how much I meant to him and to help him be successful. And it wasn't on the field, but it was afterwards when he was playing. He kind of was directional after he got his degree, finished playing at SEMO. Was playing in arena football, and just me staying on him, right, and not letting him give up on himself in essence. So remembering that, that's big. Even though his brothers, like I told him, I said, your brother's all that, but your whole life growing up, your brother always looked up to you.
Yeah. You
think he's going to look up to you now? You're a bum sitting on this couch all day, living off your brother. Go do what you said you want to do, which is to change people's lives. So he started Team Lillard. 7-on-7, and has been really successful with that, changing guys' lives. I thought that was perfect. There's a young woman, Tania Woods, I think about all the time. She showed up at Laney, was in my PE class, and we couldn't dress because we didn't have locks or something, so we're walking on the track, and so I'm like, hey, go run track, because I coach track as well. I said, during football season, we have a great women's track coach. Go see him and go work out. So I remember asking Curtis, said, well, how's the girl I sent you, Tania Woods? I couldn't even think of her first name. I think Woods. He goes, oh, Coach, she could be great, but she quit to be the JV stat girl. I go, are you kidding me? Yeah. So I go pull her out, get her back on the track. Well, by the time she's done, she set every record in California, two-time, state champ, won the 100, the 200, set, fifth fastest time ever by a high school girl.
What did you see in her? What was it? How'd you know to pull her back out?
I don't know. I just saw a kid that just, anything's better than being a stat person in my mind, to be a doer, right?
Sure.
And I don't know. She never ran track, and they always talk about how she's got the ghetto lean, just like she's mad at the world. And so I see her now. I see her and her son and daughter, and I see what she, school was always tough for her. She's got a degree. She's running orthopedic surgeons groups, centered, like, she's like the office manager, and you just see those things. And you go, oh, this is great, So there are just so many stories like that. It's just Marvell Smith. Marvell played for me at Skyline, and as a sophomore, he would run and sneak out of the weight room because he couldn't lift the bar and 45s, which is what, 135. Couldn't
135,
bench him,
yeah.
right? You couldn't do it. This guy's a big kid, right? Well, by the time he's done, he's kicking me out of the weight room. He's doing sets, a 315 on the incline, goes on to play, all Pac-10 at Arizona State, second round draft pick, probably one of the best left tackles that Pittsburgh Steelers have ever had, won 2 Super Bowl rings, one Pro Bowl player. And then when they went the first time to the Super Bowl, he invited me to the game and my 2 daughters, and we're with him when the confetti's coming down when they won.
That was in Detroit?
Detroit.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so to
cool.
be that, but more importantly is that, seeing Marvell now with his own kids and his wife and how that's working out and that he's always there. But, those are all great stories and there's just so many of those, right, that you just kind of forget about. And then I think about the young man I had at this junior high, 7th grade, phenomenal kid, but next thing, gets caught up in a murder and wasn't really his fault. Maybe it was. Long story short is that this life was so young and so much potential doesn't make it.
Yeah.
Once you get in the system, how do you get out of the system sometimes, right? So those are heart-wrenching. And so you have those stories. And so, there's just too many to account, but the point is that there's a story in every person we see. You and I have stories.
Sure, yeah.
And so they're all there. It's like just getting a chance to share them. Now, I know it's E-Team, so I'm going to just throw this in here as a nice plug because since I only have to do one fundraiser a year, and it's easy, it gives me more time to spend to make a story with a young person.
Awesome.
Right? Because if I'm not worried about, when I was at Skyline, when we didn't have E-Teams, you're doing pizza sales, candy sales, cookie sales, raffle sales.
Sure.
Every day doing something. I mean, we were hustling money every day trying to pay for things. Now, I do one thing, I'm done. And
gives you more time to go do what you love doing.
Which is not only, it's not coaching, it's coaching or teaching and being with young people, right? That to me is the real thing. Now, sometimes it's on the field, obviously.
Sure.
But a lot of times it's just being there around them to show them what's possible.
Sure.
That's all.
Do you find that a lot of, I don't know if you're a KMBR guy. No, you listen to KMBR radio at all, but
only because it's
sports
Tom
talk radio.
Tolbert. His son
Tom
played for
Tolbert.
me.
There you go. Yeah, you got it, right? There you go. It's interesting. I hear guys, they talk about, sports. What is sports? Does sports build character? Does it reveal character? You've kind of heard that before, and they talk about that. They talk about, hey, kids that grow up in homes where it's either a single-family home or they don't have a dad. What's been your experience with student athletes that show up to whether it was at Skyline or whether it's at Laney? Is there a different dynamic there in terms of maybe the way you approach coaching them versus a kid that it comes from maybe more of a stable home versus a kid that doesn't? I'm intrigued by that.
I think it's interesting. I think that's a great question. I think that you treat them all the same in a little bit because this is one of the things I've said to people, right? Whether you're from Clayton,
sure,
a white kid with 2 parents, affluent,
sure,
or you're the poor black kid from a single parent, maybe granny's raising them.
Sure.
When you come to Laney or you come to Skyline, you're on the football field. You're all same, and you're all pushing for the same goal.
Yeah.
At Laney, it's real quick. So here's a prime example. Last year, we had Jared Smart as our receiver. He's from Dublin. Well, his dad's Keith Smart. Hits the winning shot for Indiana, win the national champion, plays in the NBA, coaches in the NBA. Very, very affluent kid.
Sure.
But he's busting his tail just like that kid that comes, the Tongan kid that has the only way he's going to go to college if he gets a Division I scholarship or any scholarship.
Sure.
They're working the same. They're in the same goal.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really change in that dynamic. Now, when they go home, maybe there's not as many issues.
Sure.
Maybe Jared doesn't need me to help him with, make sure he's eating. Because that's the biggest thing we see at the community college. Kids just don't have food. And
isn't that amazing?
Yeah, they can't eat, right? There's no, when they're younger, they might be able to a little bit, but it's still the lack of food, right? Even at Skyline. I mean, here's
top 2 supplements they can get: food and sleep, right? And they probably have a hard time getting both.
Here's a great one. I had a kid one time, and I'm not going to use his name because of some privacy things, but sent him on his first trip for Division I, right? And so he goes on. And when I was at Skyline, I always made him wear a shirt and a tie on their trip, right? Because it's business, right? And so
I
I
like
give him a tie because he didn't have a tie. He had a shirt but didn't have a tie, so I give him a tie. Don't know if it matched, but it doesn't matter. It's a tie, and I tied it for him. He just put it on.
There you go, principle.
But when he comes back, I asked him how the trip was, and he's panicking because when he showed back up, he walks into his house. His mom had tried to commit suicide, and he had to call 911. Right? So Jared's probably not having to worry about that part of it, but you know what I'm saying? So there's some of that, so you got to be ready to go. When I was at Skyline all these years, not being a non-African American, and I'm in a primarily African American community. Well, how does that work? How does that work for him? I said, you know what? I said, teenagers don't understand race. But maybe I'm wrong. What they understand, though, is will you answer the phone at 2 a.m. when they call because there's a problem? That's what it means, right? So whether you're a black coach, white coach, brown coach, purple coach, when you say you're going to be there for them, will you actually be there? So if they call, do you answer? Or do you have an excuse why you can't do it? And I always answered. I answered the bell. I think that's something I'm proud of to be able to say, is that, when they called, I picked up.
That's huge. That's huge. It's I think back to when I was coaching at your level for a handful of years, and just those similar types of stories, where you got a kid that they're just looking for somebody to be able to count on, and have that dependability, because they just, for whatever reason, unfortunately, they don't have it outside of when they do, and they're on that field for 90 minutes.
Correct.
I'll never forget. I had a conversation with somebody you used to work with, Coach Pinella.
Yes.
God rest his soul. But I remember growing up in high school and Coach Pinella being my baseball coach, and he'd known that every kid probably goes through some challenging moments in their life. He knew that I was having a challenge at the time, and kind of pulled me down the right field line and put his arm around me, and he said, "Hey," he said, "when you show up here, this is the best place for you to be, because you get to leave everything else in the locker room.
Absolutely.
You get to leave everything else at home." And I think that's kind of the power of sport, right? Is being able to you've got mentors, you've got the team concept, the things that you were talking about. So important to so many people.
And team concept's family concept, right?
Sure,
so
yeah.
Someone caring.
Yep.
And so funny, you brought up Joe. I met Joe when I first started coaching at Skyline, but Joe and I crossed same path. So he was at Havens Court, which is my first job, which is right in the middle of the projects in East Oakland. And, Joe, we had very similar parallel lives. And so he used baseball, I used football, but very much similar being there for people. And then Joe was a native of Oakland, right? He grew up and went to St. Liz and played in the Houston Astros organization, had a cup of coffee. So, and coached at Laney College as well. So, it's kind of a parallel system, and, like-minded people, right? Birds of a feather flock together.
Man. You guys were both cut from the same cloth, right? I remember him telling stories about picking up Bip Roberts and putting him in the back of his truck and giving him rides home after baseball practice, and really just yeoman's work is what you guys have done. It's incredible. Coach, some questions. Let me see that ring one more time. I want to take a look at that thing. Holy cow! So that one, according to your jeweler, was a 2. It sounds like with the new,
this is a 3
or 3. Okay, got it. So the new state and national championship ring is going to be a 5.
What are
we looking at here? What are we looking at on it? What are we going to have on it?
It's going to have state champions at the top.
Okay.
On one panel is going to have, it's going to say Laney, and then it's going to say national champ, and the other panel is going to have a helmet with the player's name and then their actual number and position on it. So it's going to be personalized for each kid, and it's it's kind of a milestone for these young men. Again, and it's not only winning a state championship or national championship, but it's also winning in life, right? They had to stay eligible, they had to go through a long grind. It's a lot of work, right? I mean, how it is. It's year-round commitment.
Sure.
And, for community college kids, most of you guys are working. One guy, I think about BJ Bird, our receiver, phenomenal young man. We're getting ready to play a 1 o'clock game. We're leaving at, I think, 10:30. He gets there about 9:30. He just got done doing a 6-hour shift at UPS loading trucks. Comes in, grabs got eating something and laying down, take a little nap before we get on the bus to go play a game, and then is our starting wide receiver.
Love that story. The personal sacrifice that these young men are learning at such a young age.
It's something he wanted, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So he understood it. So
we talk about that all the time. Like if you want to be the best at something, if you want to sit at the top of that hill, if you want to win a championship or be the best, there has to be a certain level of sacrifice. And for the fact that you've got kids that are 18 to 22 years old that are learning that level of sacrifice now, like you said, that's going to carry with them the
carries
rest of
them
their
over,
lives.
right? And
Absolutely.
then, same thing when I was at Frick. I'd run a wrestling tournament for the kids because we taught wrestling, whatever. Boys and girls, co-ed, right?
Okay.
Give them the biggest trophy we could, right? Because they can put it on the mantle and remember at some point you won.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't give everybody. I'm not a believer. Everybody gets a trophy.
The trophy generation. Yeah, I got
But you get it, and so same thing with this ring. That's going to tell them that, hey, I was a winner.
Yeah.
So when that doubt sets in, some days they can look and go, wait a minute, this is what I did. This is what it took
For me to get
right. It takes something, and in today's society, I think people have forgotten that the commitment that it takes, right? The other piece is, I think, if it's too easy, then everybody, right? If it was easy, we'd all be
Everyone would do it.
millionaires, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody would have big rings, right?
Yeah, sure.
But it's not that easy.
Sure.
But it also doesn't mean that you're a failure because you didn't get it. What it means is just, you got to work at it, and things got to bounce your way. Let's be real honest, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that, we thrive for this goal. You got to reach the pinnacle, but at the same time, you worked on these steps to get there.
Sure.
And those keep playing out.
Sure.
And the easiest rung to me is getting an A degree.
Sure.
Right. Let's get it done, and so you can transfer.
Yeah, that's a great segue. It was going to be my next question. Was going to talk about the importance of community college athletics. We talked a little bit before we started the podcast in terms of we're calling this the budget cut podcast here with the team sponsor, but knowing that you've survived budget cuts both in high school and in college, but knowing the importance that junior college or community college athletics can play in giving these kids opportunities. Kind of talk about like high school coaches across the country that are listening to this. Why is it important that they know that, hey, community college football is important? It's important. It's an opportunity for some of their guys to look into.
So for us, we're in California. We're in at Oakland, but there's so many Division II schools and even 1AA that play all over the country. In California, they don't, right? So
Sure.
You come out of high school, you're not good enough, but there's not a place to go. So you go to a community college, you're more likely to get recruited, because why would you leave the Bay Area to go in the middle of America where it's cold right now and snowing? You don't want to be there as an 18-year-old, 17-year-old.
Not if you grew up in you grew up in the Bay Area or
Right,
Southern California.
right.
Sure, absolutely.
But now, after you've done 2 years, you can realize I only got to be there for a year and a half or two. It's worth it now. And because I've been at home, I'm ready to get away from home and try the next step
I'm ready
of my
to
life.
move, yeah.
Right? So I think that's why there's so many opportunities now. I didn't know that when I was a high school coach. I couldn't figure out why they weren't going to these other places. But now as a community college coach, I see it. There is way more Division II, Division III NAI school than our Division I schools. Not everybody's going to go to Division. I'm okay with that. And I'm trying to explain to these young men that I coach, and young women like for track or whatever, volleyball, there's more out there. Just keep getting an education. And if you get to keep playing something that you love that will help you get this education and people's going to pay for it, by all means leave.
Yeah.
Plus, once you leave the Bay Area, let's say, right, Bay Area's got its own uniqueness. So try something different and see how that shapes your life. Even for me, coming from San Diego to Oakland, it was a difference.
Oh, sure.
Right? Just politics, climate of life, and how things work. So it's really big, and to try something new, right? And I think it's awesome. My biggest regret is I never lived in the dorms, right? Because I went to JC and then
Sure.
I moved up here. I got an apartment, right? So, what is dorm life like? I wish
Sure.
I would have been able to try. So I want to make sure both my daughters got to experience that.
Yeah.
Because dorm life, you got to learn how to share and cooperate, right? You're sharing a bathroom and cleaning up, right? They didn't have to do that, other than with your sister, right?
Yeah.
So it's a new experience. So it's going to shape you for life.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
everything has, everything you do, in my mind, is a life experience. And you add those life experiences up to make who you are as you grow.
Sure. And that's again, this is why it's so important. I love this whole podcast format because, that's why we do what we do. We love being able to provide, hey, if there's an extra, if there's additional revenue for a school to be able to make decisions so that your football program can do whatever it is that you need to do to provide or afford those type of opportunities for you to have that conversation. That's for us. That's what's so rewarding about what we do. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of coaching? I know we've talked about a lot so far, but what's the single most rewarding thing?
I think it's just the development of a relationship with people, young people. You made a comment, that I look good at 60, and I pride that. But really, it's like it's hard to get old when you keep working with the same demographic. So nothing changes around. Like I've been working with 18 to 20-year-olds for
long time.
So it's like. It's still the same, right?
Yeah.
So you don't feel like you've aged. Like then you kind of look in the mirror. Oh shit, you did age. But when you try to move around, still try to play basketball with them. But the point is that just the relationships you build.
Yeah,
I think those are huge. And so I build a new, like you do. You go out and meet all these different coaches from all these high schools around the country, or ADs, or whatever. Those are relationships, and you thrive on that, right? You love it.
Absolutely, we love it. So, that's what it's all about,
right? So I get a new one, but see, now you go, well, they're all the same coaches, but I get a whole new group every year.
Yeah.
Right. So I build another generation, and everybody says, well, this is not these aren't the same kids as the old neck last year. Yeah, they are. They're the same. Maybe you don't deal with them the same, but they're the same.
Yeah.
A teenager is going to have teenage issues. I don't care whether it was the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, now the millennials, right? They still have teenage issues.
Sure.
Okay. Social media is new, possibly, but it's still, still issues of getting out there too much information, right? So it doesn't change. Values don't change, right? We talked about those things, being on time, showing up, commitment, things like that, but they don't change. It's just how you choose to emphasize them or not.
Sure. I love that. So we'll do a little rapid fire at you as we wrap up. Just start thinking about some of the we've been talking about favorite music, favorite food. We've been talking about some of the best players and coaches they've ever seen. So we'll go down tap your memory banks there.
Okay.
So let's start with just Oakland. Period. Let's talk about what's Coach Beam's got you got an hour lunch. You can choose to go anywhere in Oakland to go grab something to eat. What are you going to do for lunch? Where are you going?
Shoot, I'm going to go to Everton Jones, of course.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Get some barbecue.
There you go. Get some barbecue. Okay.
That's an Oakland, tradition.
That's an Oakland establishment, Coach.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And you met Donald last night. That's his grandmother's started Everton Jones.
That's his. It's all in the family.
He works there. Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
awesome. I think my favorite place if I could go, Bake Sale Betty's, the sandwich coach. Oh my gosh. So one of our good friends is a California Highway Patrol officer, and anytime that he's got a nice little break and he can take it, if it's in the middle of the day, he'll actually grab some and bring them out to our office. So we'll do that one for sure. Okay, great. In terms of some other local establishments in Oakland, let's talk about the high schools there. You coached high school ball there for a long time.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a fertile recruiting ground for you now. Who's the single greatest athlete you've seen with your own two eyes?
Man, could be Deion Struthers.
Deion Struthers, running back, went to USC, right?
Played for me.
Okay.
Could be Brian Johnson, playing at Stanford, both baseball and football. Gary Payton.
Okay.
Damian Lillard, Tania Woods. I mean, it's just so many. I don't think Jason Kidd, even though he didn't go to an Oakland public school, he grew
St.
up
Joe's.
but he's an Oakland guy.
Sure.
I think that's a tough question because there's just so many, which is what we love, right?
Yeah, right.
But
we ask the tough questions on the budget.
Got Marshawn, obviously, is another one.
Sure.
But I think there's just Devon Best. I mean, there's just so many guys that.
Was there a game changer though? We love game changers, Coach. Who was the game changer? Who was the guy that you saw that just or guy or girl that just changed the game?
God, those are all tough ones, man, because there's just so many of them. It's just again, I think people outside of would say Marshawn in football, Gary Payton probably in basketball, right? Maybe Bip or Brian in baseball. I would say Tania in track, but Angela Williams. I mean, Angela, she ran. She won the 100, the hurdles, and ran everything when Skyline girls won the state championship. So those are some big ones. You got the Purvises that ran and won everything. Again, too hard, too many. Not in Oakland.
Too many.
You go to any other Oakland. I don't think people realize that's small. It's a small place.
Very small.
What type of talent has come out of this small city? Less than 500,000 people.
Sure.
400,000.
Coach, it's one of the most talent-rich areas in the country.
That's not even counting, the music scene, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The rappers or whatever you want,
Sure.
everything. So yeah, I would. Ooh, that's a tough one.
So,
but I have to pick a Sky. It had to be someone from Skyline.
It's got to be a Skyline.
Yeah,
guy,
gotta
right?
be
You got to
at the end of the
stay.
day.
Yep, you
Can't go with Marshawn and Tech. Yeah, I can't.
Got to
do
stay
that.
true to the Skyline.
Yeah, absolutely.
Skyline roots. So, are you a music guy, Coach?
Motown.
Motown. Okay, is that what you throw on before a game? Is that what gets you in the mood?
I put
getting
Motown,
ready?
and the kids, when we play music at practice, they piss me off. I put my Motown on. Like, what is that? No, we're putting it on there. Diana Ross. It could be all the way back to Blue Magic, to Stylistics, right? Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I love it.
Even some early Michael Jackson, Jackson 5, right?
Coach,
Ohio's
I saw Earth, Wind, and Fire for the first time a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Incredible.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Great short, right?
Oh,
Isley
amazing.
Brothers, right?
Very cool.
So yeah, I'm fired up there.
I love it. Last question, then I'll ask you. We'll just say the community college football landscape.
Okay.
It's 68 schools that have football, right? None of them are on scholarship, right? So they're doing it because they love it. You guys are doing it because you love it. Looking at the current format in terms of playoffs and how everything works, do you feel like is this the best system they've had in place at this point in terms of identifying, or I guess figuring out who the real champion is in the state of California?
Absolutely.
Is this the best way?
Absolutely. Right now, somewhat we're talking about maybe going to 16 playoffs instead of 4, maybe even 8. That's fine. I think this year was unique, right? Both Ventura and Laney were both at-large teams. And I think that's always important, right?
That's like a wild card team in the NFL playoffs going to the Super Bowl, right?
Exactly. But once you get to the playoffs, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Now you got to play. Everybody's good,
sure,
right? So you got to rock and roll.
The difference in talent and between the teams is
coaching. They're all good coaches, right?
Absolutely.
And good players, and it's who can come out early and who's compete, who's healthy at that time, really too,
sure.
right? I think those are important. But I think having true playoffs now. 4 teams from the South, 4 teams from the North, and they play each other, and you get 1-1. Unbelievable.
Awesome. That's great.
Yep.
Well, good. Well, Coach, we're really proud of you.
Thank you.
Great season. It'd be awesome to see.
So I have a question for you.
Okay, what do you got?
68 teams out there that you all represent, most of them nationally. Who's your number 1 football team in college?
Well, right now there's only one. There's only one number 1 right now, Coach, for junior college.
Could you say it out loud?
It's the Laney College Eagles.
That's
Coach.
what I'm talking about, brother. That's it. Thank you.
I love it.
Take care.
All right, awesome. Thanks a lot, Coach.
All right.
That was great.